Hey everyone, we're live, pal. It's been a minute, but Andrew and I are back. And, we probably missed like the wrong show.
Yeah,
Last couple of
I
weeks
think
have been
so.
pretty newsworthy, and we have not been able to discuss it. So unfortunate, but hey, life gets in the way. We're back today. We have a lot to talk about today because tonight's a crazy wrestling night.
Not only is it a crazy wrestling night, Garrett, something else is also happening at 5 p.m. Eastern here.
In an hour.
In an hour, the New York Mets are playing at home the first playoff game in over 3,000 days. Non-wildcard game taking place in New York. Now you're going to ask, why aren't you there? I'm not there
It
because
probably only takes you 10 minutes to get there, right?
it takes me less than that, about 7 minutes. But my wife went instead of me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did she
Yeah,
dress
my
up as
wife went.
Grimace, by the way?
You know what? No, but she does have her Mike Piazza jersey.
There you go.
She does
There
have
you
her Mike
go.
Piazza jersey on. So, very exciting time here. I
Exciting.
heard, you know what? You know what? I'm rooting for the Detroit Tigers too. I
I
love an
definitely was
underdog.
rooting for them in the first round for sure.
Well, you got the
Mets.
Padres, dude. You got the Padres in the mix. You got LA in the mix.
Yeah, the Padres and the Dodgers, two of my most hated teams, being a Giants fan. I get to
Yeah.
I can't even root for one of those guys to lose. It doesn't even matter. Actually, I'm rooting for the Dodgers to lose. I always have to root for the Dodgers to lose. Yeah, so there's lots of stuff going on, and what was interesting that I saw, because we are really at the crux of baseball being in the playoffs, college football having some big games, and poor Rampage and Collision, especially with Bad Blood on Saturday, they just got destroyed.
Yeah. It's expected. I mean, listen, it's a Saturday. Most people are either out or they're doing something. So already their number is low. And then you put a WWE pay-per-view and you put a UFC pay-per-view on, you're already
Yeah, the
exhausted. You got all
prelims,
your
yeah.
in the prelims, and you got everything already. It becomes exhausting. On Beyond the Bell this morning, I was speaking about how wrestling fatigue is a real thing. And there were people that were asking questions saying, who could be number 3 in the US, right? Who could be a really strong number 3? Obviously, TNA is a number, I guess TNA is number 3 right now, or even New Japan is number 3 right now. But I don't know if you can have a very strong number 3 because there's so much saturation already from everybody else. It's almost, it's wrestling fatigue.
You can almost do it to where WWE is 1, AEW is 2, NXT is 3, and AEW B shows are 4. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where all of the eyeballs are still. And
Yeah.
if we add this Fox show, which is the thing that I wanted to ask you about first, which is how live this rumor is, how if I think I sent you a text last week. I said, is this more than a pipe dream? And you said yes. And I was like, okay, this is a legit
Yeah.
thing that people are talking about. Because if you add that
Can
show
I
to the
can I
mix,
can I stop you for a second? Can you
yes.
can you take over? I have to run out of this room for 1 second.
All right. Grimace attacked, I think. So here's the hypothesis that I have for this Fox show. Now, again, we don't know if it is gonna happen. There's negotiations, as we saw with the AEW and Warner Brothers deal. That took a long time. Like, I think Dave and I were talking on Friday how we thought they were going to negotiate, and then WBD is like, nope, we have an option. We're picking up the option. So we're like, okay, we have a whole year, and then they're going to do this thing all over again. So with this Fox rumor, if you add a Tuesday night, which I'm assuming it would be on a Tuesday night, you had a Tuesday night show, you have Wednesday Dynamite. What Andrew said,
I'm
so
back,
much
by the way. I'm so
wrestling.
sorry.
Oh, no, don't worry about it. So I was basically saying, you add that Tuesday show, and you just said there's too much wrestling on television. The fatigue is there.
Yeah.
This has to be an A show. Essentially, Tony Khan's got to book 2 A shows if they get this thing. And then Collision, can be the afterthought, right? I don't know if WBD would be happy with that, but
I don't know. It's so that's the way you laid it out, right? Makes all the sense in the world. But let's also look at it this way. When they added Collision, it didn't really change the fundamentals of that company. They just added another show with some of their roster being somewhat exclusive on there. There really wasn't a major change. But if there's an opportunity to be a 2-hour show on Fox, and I don't know if it's a 2-hour show, the way I'll off the air, I'll tell you something that was said to me. So,
okay.
I'm kind of like, I don't know if this is a 2-hour thing or a 1-hour thing. The way that it was said to me, now I'm leaning towards 2 hours. But again, I have no way of confirming that because they're not, it's still so preliminary, right? But if this is a 2-hour show, and if it is on a Tuesday or a Thursday, this is going to change fundamentally how Dynamite is. This has to be your flagship. This has to be your Monday Night Raw. This has to be your Friday Night SmackDown. Your biggest action has to happen on this because it has the most potential for getting eyeballs.
Right.
That will change this company because a lot of the stuff that they do on cable will not even come close. They cannot even come close to it on network television. So, again, with the assumption that it's on a network.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a positive change. I don't know.
They got to be able to take advantage of the eyeballs. But here's the question that I have for you: when you're negotiating with Warner Brothers, you are under the assumption that Dynamite is the A show and Collision is the B show. Now, I don't know how upfront they were with Warner Brothers about possibly negotiating, because at least as far as we've read, Warner Brothers has the 100% cable rights. Like, they couldn't go to another cable channel and put their programming on, but it did leave the door open for broadcast. So does AEW, when they're negotiating, go, hey, by the way, we have this opportunity for broadcast, and thus, what you just paid for, Collision, if we get this other show, like, Collision just has to be WCW Saturday Night, essentially. Like, I don't know how you can do Collision even the way that they're doing it today if you have another show on broadcast.
No, I agree with you. Now, you brought up something interesting, the conversation around it being exclusive for cable with Warner. Is that was that confirmed? Confirmed?
I'm trying to remember who mentioned that, but there was some.
Because I'll tell you, I never heard that before. Outside, I mean, obviously, I heard it before you said it, but when I was getting all this information, I never once told that there was an exclusivity on cable. I think it could also be some sort of assumption, where,
okay,
well, yeah, they're going to Fox, so of course they'll have the exclusive on cable with Warner if their property is on Fox National and not, any of their cable channels. I don't know. I'm still not 100% that it's on Fox. The word Fox was used multiple times with me, but I think we spoke about it. I don't know if that's just corporate verbiage. Or like how still to this day, many people call WBD Turner. TBS is still Turner to many people. I don't know if it's one of those or if it's actually they're looking at Fox National. Swerve Strickland's comment really makes me think it's Fox. Because he literally said, we're going on Fox. SmackDown's gone. We're going on there.
So I don't know if you remember the conversations in 2019 when WWE was discussing Fox. The way that I always said it was either Fox Sports or Big Fox. like that's how we kind of differentiated the language. Like, yeah, Big Fox means like for real Fox, and Fox Sports is the other thing. So here's a question. And you're right. I can't remember where I saw that, and I was assuming that was true, but I don't have the source and I can't go back to read who it was. Every time I think of something like that, I think it's either Russellnomics or Meltzer, but I could be way off. So here's the question, though. Do you think that WBD knew that Fox was a possibility?
I think they do. Yeah.
Okay.
I think they know. I think they're aware that Fox was or is a possibility. I'm willing to bet my shoes on that, to be honest. My loafers, my My Louboutin loafers, I'll bet on that WBD is in the mix of knowing what's going on.
Okay, so because you don't want your number one partner, and I guess there was that information that came out with the Kevin Kelly lawsuit. They mentioned who the actual parent company of AEW is, and in that document, I think we all surmise that if WBD does own a piece of AEW, it would have to be less than 10% based on what we had read.
Yeah.
So you want your ace partner to be happy. You don't want them to feel like they just signed you for 100 cents on the dollar and then immediately they regret that decision. So I'm hopeful that they're all kind of on the same page about that, because you're gonna need all of these people on the table in 3 years or maybe 4 years when you go and do this again, and who knows what the market is going to look like in 4 years. How much more streaming is going to be a part of that. So here's a question for you, because you were on the Max stuff before anybody, not only on the Max service as far as having a library of content, but you were also ahead of the game when it came to the idea of why it was important to have a simulcast. Now, the details about that stuff was, they weren't exact. I couldn't tell if certain things were going to be ready on January 1st or in January, or are we waiting in January, sometime in 2025? What is your gauge on when Max becomes a big part of this whole solution for viewership?
I believe January they flip the switch and the archives go on there and the simulcasting begins. I looked at when we spoke about this, and it was January 26th. I posted that I worded it in a way that's saying like, hey, listen, there's an opportunity here, and I've over the last couple months I've spoken about Tony really wanted this, and I could see why, because Tony's an analytics guy and he sees, projections are a huge part of that, and he could see what's happening to cable. And it also, to be honest with you, and I'm not saying this is his angle here, right? This is how I'm thinking. By putting your show, partially on linear and also simulcasting it on digital, you're protecting your numbers, because you're selling to the advertiser. Look, you're paying for Turner, right? You're paying for TBS and TNT, but look what else we're going to do for you. We're going to put this on streaming where a new audience, a younger audience, a hipper audience knows how to turn it on. And we're also conditioning that audience to be used to watching commercials online through digital streaming, which is still something that is still lacking, right? Because most people, many people pay for the commercial-free services, or they don't, they pirate it, whatever. You need to recondition people, really, when it comes to recognizing, wow, there's a commercial on digital streaming. That also does it, but you're also protecting your numbers, especially in a declining in the decline that they're in. They're protecting their numbers, where, hey, yeah, of course our cable numbers are going to be lower, but look at these numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not part of Nielsen currently. Maybe they will be, but they're not. And Amazon has been the king of this. They no longer provide for many of their shows their 3-day number, which was standard, DVR plus 3. They don't do that. They're doing a 4-day number, and they're saying, look at the number now, to give them a little boost. There is a little bit of number manipulation when it comes to digital services and streaming, because you're behind their wall. Obviously, you need to be transparent with your advertisers. Obviously, you don't want to lie to them, but there's a little bit of, gimmicking you could do to those numbers. I think that's part of the plan too. And I'd same thing with WWE. When that first Netflix show that goes on, I'm willing to bet that number is going to be so bonkers that we're going to laugh. 48 million people watch Monday Night Raw. Whatever. I'm just throwing a crazy number. So I think these come into play. But when it came to streaming, I was point blank told that this is something that they will be doing. There's no question about it. Pay-per-view was still in question, whether or not Max would have the capabilities. I don't know if Max is going to have the capability. I'm sorry, I'm being a little long-winded here. I don't know if Max will have that capability in January for pay-per-view. Currently, they're working on it now to be able to do this. But could it be ready for the February show? I think that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't think they're going to leave, a major show like that to the hands of other providers. But they do have an exclusive with advertising after the new year for their pay-per-views. They're not going to be able to advertise, on YouTube TV and on Triller or whatever. They're going to talk specifically on Max. You can watch it
Right.
on Max.
The ads on streaming is an interesting thing because I think I've mentioned many times that these services don't actually want you to pay for the commercial-free stuff because as they get their ad businesses going, they still make more money on us as a viewer if we're paying $10 with commercials rather than $16 without commercials. They make more money on the $10 subscriber. And so
Yeah.
when you talk about live sports on streaming, like you and I, we probably pay for ad free just because it's kind of how streaming has always worked. And one of the reasons we pivoted to streaming was so that we didn't have to watch ads. Now, imagine if you're watching Dynamite live and then you're getting ads on your ad free account. Essentially, Max is double dipping. So we pay the higher price and we see the ads because we're watching live. And so I think Hulu, the old Hulu app before they became Hulu Live, they started doing that where you would pay and you're supposed to get no ads, and then they would show you an ad in the beginning, and then they sort of tested like how many people are going to unsubscribe just because we showed them an ad before we were going to give them their thing. And they're like, oh, like not many people. So we can double dip with our customer base and they're not really going to be offended. So that's an interesting play as well for the streaming, because if AEW can prove to the cable companies and the advertisers look, we may be moving these eyeballs from here to here, but look at the value in what we're able to provide. So that'll be interesting to watch as well. All right. I didn't want to spend all day on this stuff, but you and I hadn't talked about it in a little while because we do have to pivot to what is tonight on Title Tuesday for NXT, or I'm sorry, for AEW. And then NXT is running their second show on the CW. I'm going to do a test with you, and I'll be interested to see what in the chat what people think as well. Now, this has nothing to do with whether you're a bigger fan of AEW or a bigger fan of NXT. Just from the show that we are being promoted, and if you look at Tony Khan's Twitter, I think he's a little worried that people don't really know that this show is on Tuesday and not on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read the lineups. I'll read the AEW lineup first, then I'll read the NXT lineup, and you tell me what is more attractive to you as a wrestling fan, because I'm interested to see what people think. Okay, on the AEW show tonight, Danielson and Wheeler Yuta versus Claudio and Pac. Mercedes Moné versus Emi Sakura. Mariah May. Britt versus Willow. Winner faces Mariah May at WrestleDream. Hologram versus Commander. Hook just says that he's going to call out whomever attacked his pops. And then Jay White is also scheduled to appear. So that is AEW trying to get their viewers to change the day of the week in which they watch AEW from Wednesday to Tuesday. Now here's NXT. Normal time slot for NXT. By the way, I think AEW is an hour later than normal as well. So normal show, normal time slot. Yeah, normal time slot for NXT just now on the CW. Here's what they have. Randy Orton versus Javon Evans. Obafemi defends his North American Championship against Tony D'Angelo. NXT Tag Champs Frazier and Axiom defend against Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Kalani Jordan versus Fallon Henry, JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix. Trick is to address the NXT universe. We will hear from Cora Jade and Roxanne. Jey Uso is to appear, and also Sexy Red is going to do something on this show. So out of those two shows, what is the more attractive lineup to you?
I will say this. The NXT product, I know that it has a tremendous fan base and people love it. I'm so disconnected from the characters on that show and the style of wrestling on that show. I'm so disconnected. where Monday Night Raw to me is more familiar and more entertaining. I'm not that crazy on NXT right now. Not saying that I'm not gonna be. Maybe it changes, but I'm most likely watching Dynamite. I'm not watching NXT because I don't really consume it weekly like that. I'll catch
Mm-hmm.
up. I don't have it in my calendar. It's not must see TV for me. So I'll most likely be watching and Dynamite. And to be honest, Dynamite has moving parts. It's a go home show to a pay-per-view. Um but they do have Sexy Red on, so I may have to change my tune. Because that's a huge, huge selling point. I almost feel like it's so disconnected. Like we need youth, we need the young, viewership. It's like what Vince would do. God damn it, pal, get Sexy Red. We need to pop the young viewer. Uh, I don't know. The NXT product, it's fine, but
Okay.
I'm very disconnected from him. Everybody's interchangeable to me in that company. I'm not saying it in this like asshole way at all. Almost everybody's interchangeable. Nobody really stands out to me. It's a one-stop shop. Everybody gets the same coat of makeup on and the same paint, and you're good. You go out there, and then we'll tweak it maybe. I don't know. Do you feel that way? Am I nuts?
The NXT product it can be fun. It can be head scratching, and I just don't take it all that seriously as a mainstream top level promotion. I still look at it as like third tier for WWE. And the thing that I agree with you on is AEW show is more than likely going to be more important. There's going to be stuff created all at the last minute, it feels like, which has kind of been the norm of late, to build to WrestleDream. Now, Collision isn't happening this weekend, I don't think, right?
No Collision.
So is Rampage happening? Rampage is the true
Rampage is
home?
happening. Yeah, Rampage is a true go-home show now.
There you go. If I was just looking at those two lineups, I think the NXT one is a little bit more attractive, but it's not because of the NXT folks. It's because of the main roster WWE folks that they put on there. And I have this really, I have a great interest to see Randy Orton and Javon Evans. I have less of an interest to see Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. But, the Dynamite show's going to more than likely have the better wrestling. So if that is your cup of tea for why you watch television show, that is not my thing, by the way. I watch televised wrestling to see what happens next to set up pay-per-views. That's kind of always been my habit for the marketing. I always saw televised wrestling as marketing for the big shows, but it's not really like that anymore because television makes so much more money than the pay-per-views. But yeah, like like lineup wise, if I was like a casual kind of viewer, I would probably lean a little bit towards NXT. But as a fan of what we do, I'm more interested in seeing what happens on Dynamite because it's got to set up things that you're supposed to pay for this weekend. So, but it'll be an interesting experiment. I just don't sense that Tony Khan necessarily put his A game on this one. And I'm not sure why. It could be related. It could be related to travel. Like there's a crazy hurricane that is going to be happening. And that is more important than anything that we're going to watch on our television this week. So, I mean, there could be multiple reasons why. But yeah, this was an interesting lineup that he put up because usually he wants to win these ones, right? Whenever he gets the chance to go head to head, he's trying to win. And I don't know that he tried to win necessarily tonight.
Well, I think between the playoffs, MLB playoffs, and being on at 9 o'clock and not 8 o'clock, I think the competitiveness kind of went to the back burner here, which I don't agree with. I think, and you're calling it Title Tuesday. Where's the titles?
Yeah, there's only one, and there's one matchup that is going to create a title match at the pay-per-view, I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they had to call it Title Tuesday. Is it just every time you move to Tuesday, we got to call it Title Tuesday? Just like Battle of the Belts didn't always have matches for belts on Battle of the Belts.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
What did you think of the 2-hour version of Monday Night Raw?
I've been praying for 14 years, and it was not good. I did not
Yeah,
like it.
it was.
I think it was a pacing issue, really. Like it was kind of wacky. Um, I'm like, you finally gave everybody 2 hours after all these years. People were asking for 2 hours, and it wasn't good.
I thought it was the way that show was paced was every reason why I don't like televised wrestling. Because and not that the wrestlers themselves don't put their all into it. They do. They're wrestling for that live crowd, but as a television viewer, when I see Jey Uso come into the ring and him and Xavier go for a minute and then they go to a long commercial break and then they come back and then they go to the finish, I'm like, okay, you just told me that this match is not that important. Now they got to pay their bills. That's what it is. But this specifically is why I'm not a giant fan of televised wrestling. And in the main event, there were 2 long picture-in-picture segments, and I don't know, maybe people enjoy squinting at the television to watch what's going on. Even your giant 70-inch screen television, it's still not great. But I was like, yeah, I would have loved to see Gunther and Sammy on a pay-per-view. Was not that happy watching it in that format. And so when NXT or when AEW has the similar thing, I feel the exact same way. If you're going to give me a great main event and then you have 2 picture-in-picture, I'm less interested because it just tells me that if this thing was important, you would have put it on pay-per-view instead where I can actually pay for it and not see these ads. So that is my overall take on televised wrestling. But for the time saved, I guess you could say, it was nice to only have 2 hours and to only have the commitment. Like sometimes before Raw starts, I go, do I have it in me? And sometimes it's the answer is no. And I didn't have that same thought for this one because like, oh, it'll be quick or it'll be easier. Because you can always skip stuff on Raw. Like there's always probably 30 minutes of content that you're just skipping because you're like, oh, I pay attention to this stuff. So this is not for me. This is for someone who missed 3 weeks in a row and they need to catch up. So that, you could still do that here. And it was a really quick watch.
How was the abridged version on Netflix, on Hulu?
You know what? I didn't see the abridged version because I just went right to the DVR and watched the 2-hour version. So I didn't even think about doing that because I wanted to see how that 2-hour pacing was. But next week I'll watch the 90-minute version and see if anything changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was paced weird, but I expect them to kind of get that in order for next week at least. I can't see them, messing up the pacing for another week.
What do you think the pacing is going to be like when they do move to Netflix?
I don't know because it's not going to be 2 hours or 3 hours. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle, depending on the week, maybe a little more than 3 hours if it's a mega week. I'm very curious about that. I'm also curious about the content. We're already seeing it shifting. I mean, there was a ton of blood in that match with Punk and Drew. And this is the second time they've done that. You're seeing a lot more blood now. Things are loosening up a little bit. I'm very curious to see how this goes. I don't know how they're going to pace it. I don't know how the commercial structure is going to work. We still don't know that.
Yeah, because it's not like Netflix has this great ad business, right? We may see a lot of just duplicative ads. We may see the same one over and over and over and over. You know what one I hope they get on there though is Frank Thomas selling his testosterone booster. That's the one we need on Netflix.
Are you making fun of me?
No, not at all. Making fun of the Big Hurt. Get paid, Big Hurt, for doing testosterone booster. What's funny? Have you? Did you used to listen to the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast?
Yeah, I did.
So he used to be a pitch man for a product. I think it was called T Plus. And basically it was supposed to be this natural testosterone enhancer. And I as an experiment, I was like, okay, I'm lifting a lot right now. Let's try this thing out. The only thing it did was give me a stomachache. That was it. Just that's what T plus was for me. It was like this,
Uh,
just a stomach ache.
well, do you know what was in it? I'm willing to bet it was like maca, and it was like all
Yeah, I
these
don't remember.
testosterone. That's another thing that you could
It
take.
was the same
Uh,
company that did that. What was that other pill that him and Joe Rogan used to pitch for the mushroom
Alpha
stuff where you get
Brain.
a Alpha Brain. I think it's the same company
Yeah,
that did Alpha Brain. Whatever that company
it's
is. I
possible.
think T plus I'm sure exists. I don't know
Let
if
me see
it's the
if it's still
same
here.
stomach ache form that I had, but
Total. I don't see it anymore listed here under
yeah, maybe too many
supplements.
people were like, not buying
You
this
got belly
anymore.
aches?
I don't need
Yeah.
a stomach ache.
Yeah.
Um, that's hilarious. Okay, so the Netflix thing, we're 3 months away from it or whatever. What do you do day one, Netflix? Like, what is your thing to draw? Because this is you have one shot to do your debut Netflix show. Do you do one
Yeah.
of those old school Raws where you bring back all the old people and all of a sudden Ric Flair's on and Hogan's on and Undertaker's on and Austin comes back? Or do you put like a giant pay-per-view match as the thing to draw the viewership?
I would treat it. I would of course do the legends, right? You're gonna bring those guys in. I would bring Steve Austin in. The Rock will be on there. And I would definitely swap a title. I would definitely do a major title change.
And you also have Saturday night's main event just 2 weeks before that. So you have I don't think they have a December PLE, do they? Because I think they go
Wasn't it TLC before? I don't know unless they pulled
yeah,
it.
but I don't think they did that last year. Maybe I'm wrong, but you have Survivor Series as kind of the last thing, and then maybe in December your PLE is Saturday night's main event. So that's where you peak the TV for a Saturday night's main event, and then 2 weeks later, or maybe it's 3 weeks later, depending on that first Monday in January, then you got the Netflix show. So, they're gonna they're gonna be having to
Yeah.
save some big stuff for those two shows.
I would
We're
do it, man. I
only
would I would I would do it. I would pull maybe not obviously Cody's not dropping it, but I mean you could do a Gunther title swap, you could do an IC title swap. You could have a big hot angle happen, something. I think they need to treat this as something really large, and I'll tell you why. There is still a tremendous amount of disenfranchised wrestling fans that are my age and your age that you have a unique opportunity to get them back. AEW filled that void for a couple of years. That Bullet Club boom kind of brought some people back. And then, CM Punk brought people back. You need to do something here. And I think The Rock being a part of that is great. I think Steve Austin wrestling on WrestleMania a couple of years ago was fantastic for that. But you need to do something that's going to make people turn this on. Most people are not channel surfing anymore. It's almost impossible to do so. So you're stuck on one thing. If you're in the Netflix ecosphere and you see this live WWE, you're going to turn it on and you're going to want those people to stay. You could do a ton. I would really cater to gaining those people back,
all right.
especially WrestleMania season.
What if first Raw of the year, main event, John Cena against CM Punk?
Fantastic. 10 out of 10.
They could do stuff like that. They could definitely do stuff like that.
And nobody has to look bad. Nobody has to look bad at all. Seth Rollins could come in or someone interrupts. And then the following week, for the first time in over a decade, John Cena and CM Punk are teaming up to face whoever. So now you backed it up, Now you got a second week out of this. There's a lot. I mean, I love that stuff. When you're talking about like booking and stuff like that, I don't like to book, but I really like the marketing aspect.
Yeah, there is a marketing aspect to booking.
Nobody talks about that, though. Nobody looks at it that way. When WWE had it, I mean, as close to perfect as you could imagine for a couple of years, because what would they do every single week or every 2 weeks, right? The main event, it's a big main event. It's Austin and whoever, or Rock and whoever. and something is happening, and the music hits, and here comes Triple H, and here comes Mick Foley, and oh my God, what's going to happen next week? Oh, and then you go black.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And you don't really see that often. And AEW has attempted it. WWE barely does that now. Barely. You don't end in chaos. I think they need to end the show in chaos and continue that. And if you kind of condition people like, oh man, that last hour, the last 20 minutes of this show, I need to know what's happening for next week, people will tune in. But again, that's the marketing aspect of this, that people get too stuck in the nuance of ending the show happy or ending the show this way, or, having the match conclude on the right time. Give me the last. Okay, here's one, right? You and I, big AEW fans. Give me the last sign off that company did that you stopped and you said, holy shit, I got to watch next week. How are they doing this?
Yeah.
I can't tell you one.
Are you saying a show that didn't end in the Dark Order punching the mat?
That was the December show. And do you know what's scary? I know exactly which show that was. I want to say, was it December 8th or December 5th? It was in December. How the hell do I remember that it's in December? Because it was so terrible. You know what? That's the last one I remember, because I was like, God damn it. How are they explaining this next week?
Yeah. The other thing, and we'll move off the WWE thing because I do want to talk about WrestleDream. Also, you have Charlotte, who should be returning sometime soon. So if you wanted to earmark her for Saturday night's main event or this Raw on Netflix, Becky Lynch is still kind of, she's not AWOL. Like, we know she's, raising her daughter and hanging out. Yeah. But Mom has been the word on her contract situation and if she's coming back or not. So they've done a good job of keeping that in the dark, because you can use both of those women for surprises, and you could get them back in for those shows too. So, they're in this like really cool position where they have the current wrestlers who are on those brands. The fans love them. The fans are completely dialed in. They're dialed into Cody. They're dialed into Jey Uso. They're dialed into Gunther. They're dialed into Roman. They're dialed into Randy Orton. They're big time into Liv and Rhea and Dom. So the fans are happy with the current trajectory of where the company is going. And then you can still bring all of these old stars. You can bring in a Cena and a Rock. You could save Austin for a special moment at WrestleMania. And it's just like there's so many choices that they have.
I got it.
Are you talking about
that main event
for first Netflix Raw?
I got it.
All right, go for it.
I got it. The main event: Bill Goldberg and Gunther. Don't tell me I'm wrong.
They could do it.
They could, and they should. They really should do that. You got a world title match with Bill Goldberg smashing his head on the wall. Bah! He's just doing that, karate kicking forward against Gunther. They'll wrestle for like 5.5 minutes, and it'll end in some weird way. Great. I'm in.
Gage hops the rail to pops his hand at the end of the night.
You know what, though? Gage is a stud. That kid shot up. He's a beefy kid.
So that
Good for him.
That Netflix show, I believe, is going to be at the new Clippers arena. So the arena in Inglewood. Yeah. So what is it called? I forget what it's called.
Inuit.
That Intuit?
Is it Intuit?
Inuit.
The Inuit natives. That was the native tribe, the Inuits. I don't believe that's the name of the stadium.
Intuit Dome.
Intuit.
Yeah, the Intuit Dome. Which is going to be wild.
I think it should be the Inuit Dome. I think it should be the Inuit Dome.
Well, the reason why that's really cool is because, Steve Ballmer built that thing to be this like really new age technology arena, and WWE is going to have a giant crowd there for their first Netflix show. So there's going to be lots of synergy in that market too, with I'm sure with the NBA and the Clippers and
Oh,
WWE going to be
100%.
there and all that stuff. So
And you're in
that's going to
you're
be
in
a good feeling.
LA, big city, big TV city. You're gonna have a lot of celebrities in the audience. I'm sure.
If
I'm sure
if it was a
Netflix, whatever
if it
top
was a
show is on
pay-per-view,
Netflix.
yeah, oh yeah, all the Netflix people should be there. Whomever is the
Yeah,
star of whatever the recent Netflix top show is should be there.
yeah.
If it was a weekend show, I would probably try and figure out how to get there, but it's just too hard. How can I go to LA on a Monday? Like that's just too hard. But
That's like me talking about going to Manhattan on a daily basis. It's a Tuesday. I can't go to the city. I can't. It's a Wednesday. You kidding me?
yeah. I mean,
I
it's
feel it.
it's an hour and a half flight, but then
Oh,
it
no,
could
mine
it
is
could be
a
done.
20-minute train ride.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's talk about
Yeah.
WrestleDream here before we get
Yeah.
out. So WrestleDream is Saturday, which is
Live from Tacoma.
yeah, like I just realized this not too long ago, and this is how crazy the wrestling dates are because it feels like they're just wrestling on all the time. So I don't even look at when the dates are of these shows. I just assume that I'm
Yeah.
going to be available to watch them all because I just watch them all. But I'm actually going to be in Arizona that day because my parents, their 50th wedding anniversary party.
Wow.
And so
That's tremendous.
we're flying into Arizona Saturday morning, and then we're leaving Sunday evening. So I'm not going to get a chance to watch WrestleDream live with all the homies at Big Dave's house. I'll have to buy it on YouTube and watch it here and there on my iPad while we're out and about, and then probably watch the majority of it Sunday night when I get back home. But yeah, I didn't even realize until like this week that I was going to be missing the show. So,
So
I
I
think
believe
it's one of the
Brian's going to the show,
rare.
right?
Who?
Brian
Brian
Alvarez.
Alvarez?
Is he going to the show?
I would imagine so because he keeps saying how the building is a dump.
It's a dump. That's what I was going to bring up because he absolutely hates that building and he keeps talking about it like it's a total dump. So I'm curious who's doing the show with Dave afterwards.
If they record late, I don't know what the drive is from Spokane to wherever Brian lives. So I'm assuming that they'll just do it later that night. Yeah, because I'm gone, so I won't be able to do it. Or they could just do it Sunday morning too. Where does Brian even live? I forget the city that Brian lives.
Bothell?
Yeah, there you go. What is the
go,
Bothell to Spokane?
Well, according to this, it's a 4-hour drive.
Yikes! Maybe he's not.
So
going.
maybe he's not going. Yeah.
Can you fly?
Wait a minute. No, it's not in Spokane. It's in Tacoma. It's at the.
Yeah. Sorry. Tacoma. I think he said
Bothell.
Spokane may have been where
A better place. 1 hour.
Okay, then he's good. He should be good.
Yeah. Bothell is 1 hour from Spokane. From Tacoma.
By the way, before we even get into previewing the show, I wanted to shout out Jim Valley, who had a kidney transplant.
Yes,
and as of this morning, he tweeted that he was up and walking around. So shout out to Jim, and hope that he is continually feeling better with his surgery and such. So that's
incredible.
Awesome news. Yeah, crazy news.
Tremendous
great
news
for Jim.
Yeah, tremendous.
Okay,
that makes me so happy for him.
All right, so let's talk about the matches now. There's only 8 matches on the card as of right now, and if we know a Tony Khan wrestling pay-per-view, they're probably about 6 matches light, considering we'll get a 0 hour. So
there's one match announced.
I looked at this show and I thought, this is going to be a very good wrestling show. The main event should be meaningful with Moxley and Danielson, though I would have liked a little bit of time for them to tell the story a little bit more. It's almost like they ran out of time. Up and down, I'm not sure there's one single match where I'm like, you know what? That's the one that I have to watch outside of the main event. I know a lot of people will say Ricochet and Ospreay and Takeshita, and the talent in that match is tremendous. I'm not a fan of three ways. I would rather see individual matches than three ways. But those are the two big matches. Is there anything on this show where you're like, you know what, this is going to be great? I'm going to have my glass of wine and I'm going to kick back, and I can't wait for this match.
Yeah. I think if there was an opportunity for Will Ospreay to drop the title, this would be a moment for him to drop the title. I would like to see Takeshita with that belt. There are, this. I don't want to dive into this conversation, but there's so much to be said about people on AEW TV that should be getting wins every single week that don't. Takeshita's one of those guys. Kyle Fletcher's one of those guys.
Yeah.
I want to see. You got to build them to this audience. We know how good they are. But, to my kids watching, they're only losers because they're losing.
Yeah.
I've Garrett, and you got two boys, right? And you raised them and they're older now. You went through that, seeing it through a different lens with them, especially when it came to sports, when it came to, what was in with music. I'm starting to see that now with my kids. My kids are 7 and 8 years old. My daughter's turning 9. My son's turning 8. That is the next generation of tastemakers that you need to build. Nobody wants to watch people lose on TV. They want to see people win.
It like you can get over in losing on the rarest of rare occasions. It's almost like an
to
excuse
us you
to get
can
people to lose.
To us you can, there's so many times like we've seen Danielson get murdered and he still gets over because of how good he is, but we also know him as who he is. He's already established. Takeshita is a guy that needs a win. We've already established Will Ospreay. This is a future world champion sooner than later. Obviously he has a built-in program with Ricochet and they could go back and forth and they could do something. I would love, if I'm going to fantasy book, again, let's have fun here. If I'm going to fantasy book, Takeshita gets the win due to something wacky, and now you build a nice series between Will Ospreay and Ricochet, and you could go back and forth, and the story could be, this man is Will Ospreay's foil because he knows him so well. And you could continue that for a while, and Takeshita could be the champion, and you elevate him on TV. I'm really looking forward to this match because it really sets up 3 really important pieces for that company.
I agree with you from that mindset. I just wanted to see Ospreay and Ricochet have their non-interrupted non-bad finish match. Now, I'm sure we'll get it. Like you're saying, you could build to it.
Yeah.
But I was like, Takeshita, the mean heel, kind of screwed this match so that it doesn't happen. Oh, but we're going to pay for it and we'll get it. And then I thought, nope, this is not the way they do it. They're going to add Takeshita and he's going to be the third person. Not the match that I necessarily asked for or wanted, but it's going to be good nonetheless. I did want to see Ospreay and Ricochet do that match for real, though. It almost felt like, they started something and you were like, okay, now it's getting good after they did a little bit of like their OG stuff from back in the day just to show fans like, oh yeah, just remember when we used to do this. And then they started to actually have the match and I was like, okay. And then it stopped. So I thought, let's save this for the pay-per-view, but it's not the way they did it. And we'll get it eventually, but I'm with you. It's a good way. If the idea is Takeshita comes out of this thing with the title, great. I don't know that they set that up perfectly, but he's awesome. So I would love to see him get a serious run, rack up some wins, be great, and be a big time person, be a main player in that company. And you mentioned Kyle Fletcher. That guy, I think, maybe more than anybody else on that roster, not named MJF, for this next year, he needs to be built into a main player as well. Because I think he's got everything. I don't know what that dude is missing. Like, when his tag team partner got hurt, he got bigger. He changed his look a little bit. He got some personality. So he did all of the things that you would have wanted him to do. And now it's just him getting into position to rack up those wins as well and moving him into the next level. Like, so that should be like the 2025 plan, is getting him in that mix there.
Yeah.
What did you think of Danielson and Okada and the way that whole thing ended on last week?
With Danielson and Okada, um, I thought the finish they creatively got themselves out of it. I don't know if it was the right ending. Uh, it was a lot of stipulations. The first 20 minutes is this, but the rest is this. Um, I don't think the loss hurt Okada. We were talking about losing, right? I don't think it did anything to hurt Okada at all. But it kind of turned into like a nothing. Where do you
Yeah.
go from here? Is he still in the mix for that title now? You just threw that tremendous match just to throw a match between the two.
Yeah. The thing, there was both matches, both big matches on that show. Ospreay and Ricochet and Okada and Danielson. They seemed to be put together without great ideas for finishes, so it's almost like you make the match and then you figure it out. And I didn't like the way either of those were resolved. I thought Okada looked like a giant dork by losing to distraction finish just of 3 dudes in tank tops. All of a sudden he's like, "Hey man, we're these 3
too
dudes
much.
in tank tops. I'm distracted. I'm gonna get pinned." So yeah, and then it is what it is. But so that was your setup though to the next part of Danielson and Moxley. And what is your take on what they're doing with Moxley? What do you think this is all leading to? Or are we just creating the story that, just because we're bored? Like I see lots of stories around what Moxley is doing, and Excalibur is saying who's the one putting this all together. And what do you sense is going on here?
I don't know. There was a report that came out that said Shane is not involved with that story. And I'm like, okay, you know what? That's fine. They got to have some sort of conclusion here, right? It's not just like Moxley took over, because the way that they presented it the first week, it was a little bit different when he went to Tony Schiavone and said, "This isn't your company anymore." And they even alluded the last couple of weeks that there's something else coming.
Yep.
I hope it's not Sami Callihan, because that was the big rumor coming, that because Jon Moxley attempted to trademark switch something. I don't know. I don't remember offhand.
Yeah,
I hope
for
that's
whatever their tag team name was, right?
Whatever that tag team name was. And again, it could be just that he does some indies with him, and that's cool. I think that reveal would not be this big moment. I think what they've done with Marina is fantastic. I love that she was screaming in Russian. You add another element to her.
But by the way,
I enjoy those things. I really do.
I think it's Switchblade Conspiracies is
Switchblade Conspiracies. What a Jon Moxley name to have.
And they don't they already have the Switchblade Jay White?
The Switchblade Jay White is this. Yeah, maybe
So
there's more Switchblades. Maybe they all get involved.
Yeah, maybe
I love this Moxley though. I love this Moxley. I love that, the whole presentation has been so good with him. But what's the end story here? Where are we going? You're brutalizing Danielson. You're gonna, my theory, I'm leaning towards he's beating Danielson on Saturday. Danielson goes away for a little bit. Interestingly enough, I was told that Danielson was going to lose the title at the show, but it was to Darby. That's what I was told. I think we spoke about it off the air.
Yeah, Darby.
You and I were going
poor
back
Darby
and
looked
forth.
like a dork on the last couple weeks of TV.
Yeah,
that poor dude. I mean, that's another guy. I mentioned Kyle Fletcher. It should be the year of getting him ready. Like Darby should already be in the mix.
Do you know how likable he is to kids? Darby Allin, and I'm sorry, my dog's barking. Darby Allin and Danhausen and Hook and all those smaller guys have such a big appeal to a younger audience, and that's 100% true. My kids love Darby because he's small and he does crazy things and he has the face paint. They need to get him winning. You want to, again, I keep saying this. You know who else? Orange Cassidy. I mean, he had a nice run for sure, but think about how much more over he got in a mainstream way from the time that AEW started to now. I hated that gimmick. The hands in the pocket thing, the sloth level of wrestling, I did not like it at all. And then I saw the brilliance in him. And I was first to say, you know what, dude? I was freaking wrong here. This guy is incredible. The gimmick's over. I really like it. But he also changed it a little bit. He doesn't do that as much. You're right. I think Darby would be a guy to have on. And what's going to happen? He's going to wrestle Brody King on the show and essentially get murdered by him. And then beat him at the end, maybe, with some weird thing.
Roll up. Maybe a man in a tank top will show up and Brody King will get
a man in a tank top, the most devastating distraction in pro wrestling.
That's Claudio's new move. Just stand up, arms crossed in a tank top for distractions.
You know what? If Claudio's doing it, I'm kind of scared. So
yeah. He looks awesome in a tank top.
Yeah.
He should never wear normal shirts ever again. That's how great he looks in a tank top. All right, let's quickly go through the show. So I'm assuming this is on the 0 hour for the ROH TV title, Atlantis Jr. against Brian Cage. We have Mark Briscoe against Chris Jericho.
Match of the night right there.
That's Mark Briscoe is money. I just wish I wish he wasn't used as the guy to get the other guys over because he's amazing. I would love to see him have like that one run that I always kind of hoped for with Eddie Kingston that almost got there, didn't quite get there. It was really close. I'd love to see that from Briscoe as well. Darby Allin, Brody King, like you mentioned. Jack Perry against Shibata for the TNT title. Ospreay, Ricochet, Takeshita. And this is wild to me. The Young Bucks against Private Party. After how they booked Private Party recently, the fact that these guys fell into a tag title shot almost made me want the rankings to come back, but not quite.
Garrett recently booked the last 5 years of their booking. They beat the Young Bucks and then they did nothing.
Yeah, I know.
Mariah May, Britt Baker, talented, those two.
They are very athletic. They just seem to not have a lot of guidance in what they're doing. Mariah May and Britt Baker, and then Danielson and Moxley. So right now, unless they make it on Dynamite
or Willow,
I'm sorry. They Britt Baker
or
Willow because they are facing each other.
Thanks for the spoiler, Garrett.
No. I read the thing wrong. Is what happened. But no,
you got the advanced copy of the Observer. That's what happened.
I got the Jim Valley special satellite version of the TV shows that he somehow gets to see that we don't get to see. So far no Mercedes. So we don't know if she's going to be defending her championship or not. Maybe we'll find that out tonight because it seems like they're setting up something with Chris Statlander, I guess, who is all of a sudden, is she not? She's a baby face now or something, right?
I've lost count, to be honest.
Well, I think it only happened on the Collision, maybe that nobody watched. So it's possible because I didn't watch it. There was so much stuff going on this weekend. But AEW is gonna have a good pay-per-view. I just wonder the buy rate for this one because of all of the competition, and I wouldn't say it was the best built show that they've ever done, coming off of the All In and All Out happening so far or so quickly, and then now this one. So it'll be entertaining. I know that I won't hate it for buying it. I for business reasons, I hope that they do a really good show tonight to kind of create more interest because I'm sort of sensing that, there's a little bit of like there's a pay-per-view amongst all of these other things we have to watch. So,
yeah. Also, we got the Bobby Lashley stuff happening soon. Bobby's coming in, and that's going to be a big point. And of course, my favorite, I can't wait till Shane McMahon shows up. That's what I'm waiting for.
Here comes the money.
Not that I know if he's coming or not. Not that, again, don't report that. Nobody report that. I hope he gets to use Here Comes the Money because it is technically a Naughty by Nature song. So I would, I just want to see the chaos. That's what I want to see. I want to see the chaos from this.
So I know we're late.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you one media thing because the Triple H comment, when the gentleman mentioned
Yeah.
the male wrestlers of color not having matches on PLEs of late. What did you think about the way he answered that?
Okay, I spoke about this, right? And you know me. We talk off the air about everything, and you
Yeah.
really know how I think. I spoke about it on the air on Beyond the Belt this morning, and I don't ever like going into that because it's almost impossible for me to articulate my point of view
Right.
to appeal to everybody for them to understand. You know, biases get in the way of your thought process. Not necessarily me, but in general with what I'm repeating. My take from this was I think that's a very fair question to ask.
Yes.
Um, Two, I don't think Hunter meant anything with negative with what he said. He's from a different generation. He grew up in a time, and so did I, that when you said I don't see color, that was the same as you saying, how dare like that's a dumb question. I don't judge people by their
Yeah.
looks or their
We
ethnicity or
we
their
all
religion.
thought that way when we were growing
We
up.
have all, and guess what? And we have said it. And I have said it so much in my life. Being a kid from Queens and having a melting pot of a friend group. I mean, we were the United Colors of Benetton. Everything and anybody was in my friend group. So the comment of I don't see color, I understand what he's saying, but we're not in 1998 anymore,
Yeah.
where that was a very acceptable public relations comment to make. Because if he said, I don't see color, I see talent. And I'm thinking, you know what? That's a great response. It is talent first, then everything second. However, that is not, it's a different time now. The words matter differently. Would I have ever said that in 2024, even though I know what he's attempting to say? He could have phrased that very differently. He could have said that exact sentence without saying that sentence. He didn't. He's a 50-year-old man, and he used a progressive thinking statement that he has heard his entire adult life. I don't know what I am anymore. Garrett, you and I talk about this. Am I white? Am I this? Am I that? I don't know anymore. I don't see it. I don't care. I'm myself. I get people that come to me about, just my friends. They ask me about, again, I'm,
look,
my
being
personal views are different, but
being multiracial or biracial is also a thing because we have to fit in to different
absolutely
places.
Absolutely. Listen, you are, and I'm a total mutt. I'm Middle Eastern. I'm a lot of things, but I understand what he was attempting to say. I don't think in 2024 that was the most politically correct public relations answer to give somebody, considering the criticism that they have had over the last X amount of weeks about that exact topic.
I will
think
say
he was attempting to do right, and he dug himself into a hole.
I have a experience. You remember the Double or Nothing Starcast? I don't know I don't know if that was the second one or how many they had done before, but
Okay.
the very first Double or Nothing. So we're talking 2019, and I am with Big Dave, and Brandy and Cody come into the area that we're in, and a conversation starts happening about race. And Brandy says that when she first started dating Cody, Cody said, I don't see color. And she said, well, Cody, if you don't see color, then you don't see me and you don't see my experience.
And what a great answer.
And Cody was
fantastic answer.
Cody was like, oh my God, like you're totally right. And Cody has gone on to say this. He's talked about this in his own experience of having a wife who is a different race than him. And so, we're talking, this is 5 years ago. And so I thought it was fascinating because I'm like, wow, like she is actively, talking about this stuff in a pro wrestling setting.
And Garrett, what a beautiful response that is, right? Because it really, I brought that up too, because that's such a great example of something I had never heard before. Okay, never had heard before, and I'm going into my personal life a little bit. Like one of my closest friends, black kid from South Jamaica, Queens, ended up becoming a Marine. like I thought of him first, and I brought it up. I brought it up to him. I'm like, what do you think of this? He's like, yeah, with you it's a little different, but I totally understand. Like, yeah, you don't see what I've gone through.
Right.
I understand the comment, and that's why I kind of went back to what Hunter said. Like, when he put it in a perspective where I totally understand the comment, and I'm not offended by it, but you also should consider, hey, the way that I have lived my life has everything to do with that. By you're diminishing it in a way by saying you don't see it. I totally understand Brandy's comment and I guarantee you, I mean, it really changed Cody's perspective, I'm willing to bet.
And the other thing about it is true empathy is being able to walk in someone's shoes and understand that. You and I, even though we are biracial or multiracial, we are not black. So we cannot truly be offended by Triple H's comment because we don't feel that from a black person's experience. We can
Yeah, of
call it
course,
out
yeah.
and say how, it's not, he shouldn't have said that. But, and I think this is what a lot of the wrestling media folks who do podcasts and who write and who were reacting to what he was saying, what they were also reacting to is, yeah, you white male trying to explain our scenario here, you're also kind of off. And so I don't want to speak for anybody. I can only speak to my experience in that moment, and I can only sympathize with that experience about and living sort of through their tweets. Now, the one thing I will say about Triple H and why I thought it was a bad answer,
But because he did
said,
blackface multiple times on TV? Yeah.
well, yeah, his
yeah.
own pro wrestling background is shaky on that
Yeah.
stuff. But the other thing is that when you say I only see talent, and then I look at the makeup between men and women, and then I look at the makeup between male wrestlers and their races, the numbers don't lie about who WWE generally pushes to the top. So
Yeah.
his statement in of itself by saying that, because wrestling is not a meritocracy. It's not about the best athlete or who cuts the best promo or who's the best actual in-ring wrestler. It is the choice of the guy who's got the book to who he thinks
make
is
that.
going to make
Yeah.
the most money. So that was his main fault. The color thing is just, I'm just looking at him going like, dude, you need to grow up past 25 years ago. But at the same time, you can't say that it's all talent either, because you're basically proving the point that you have the book, and thus you are saying this specific type of individual is the most talented, which is absolutely false. But in his eyes, about who he sees draws money, that is who he sees draws money.
And again, this goes back to exactly what we were saying. He grew up in a very different generation. I made that comment that he did some, by today's standards, highly problematic angles. The Booker T stuff was not great at all.
Yeah.
Going out in blackface, X-Pac dressing up like Mark Henry.
You cannot find that on Peacock, by
it.
the way. They ripped
You
that off
cannot,
of
really?
Peacock. No.
Wow.
I tried to watch it. I tried to watch those Raws back, and that was not there.
As a testosterone filled teenager watching that happen, I even at that point I was like, yikes. Like you knew at that point that that's really pushing this taboo line of what you do and what you don't do. But again, I don't like to hold those things against people for things that they've done 25 years ago on a television show that was scripted. I go based on character and how they've acted. I'll tell you something off the air, Garrett, when we're off the air here, because something interesting was said to me about somebody in that locker room at that point. But I don't think it's fair for me, right? For me, for you, yes, possibly. For someone that's black and that experienced that and saw that and was highly offended, that's all you're right, and you should be offended. But I can't look back 25 years ago and say and blame that person today. I grew up on Howard Stern. Today, he interviewed Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I saw that.
This is a man
go back and listen
that
to
if this was an interview 25 years ago, he would have asked her, some really wacky questions.
Yeah.
He's evolved and he changed. Is he my content now? No, I don't really listen to him. Is that content my content now? No, absolutely not, because I'm a different person 25 years, 30 years later. I'm a 40-year-old man. and we see things through different lenses.
You mean you're
I
not
I
listening to
don't.
Jackie the Joke Man Martling phony phone calls?
Ah! Ah! I do a great Jackie, by the way. I'm not asking. I'm not having guests on my show and asking them to ride the Sibian. Okay, Garrett,
Yeah,
that's not
yeah,
happening here.
yeah.
But I think that for Hunter, this was a nice learning lesson. And maybe for WWE, if there was enough of a comment made, maybe someone's like, hey, maybe we should do some PR training a little bit more here with how do we deflect these questions. There were so many different ways he could have answered the same question with the same result, where he said, hey, we're about talent. If he had attempted in a minor way, I think it would be a different conversation. In the long run, does it mean that he's a racist? No, it doesn't mean he's a racist. It just means that he's
I
a
think it was
50-year-old man that's still seeing things in the same lens of what he had heard 25 years ago to say. He thought that's an appropriate answer.
an opportunity. It was an opportunity to basically say we are evolving, we are a work in
Yep.
progress, and
And
look at all of
NXT.
look at the people who
Yeah.
we have now. Jey Uso and Roman Reigns are not black, but they are Samoan. The Rock is half black and half Samoan. So there is a mix, a better mix than there ever has been in professional wrestling. And you could have said it that way. And you could have said, look, we are progressing. We are getting better at this. We are finding all kinds of different talent. Um, there are examples of future stars like Obafemi is a person of color who's got he's got money like all over him. So he could have done it that way, but I just thought, you're just defensive and you can't be defensive. You are the face of this company. My friend Sam Shipman said, you are in a leadership role. You cannot play the dumb babyface role. Like you need to be better.
You know,
And
that's
I
very
think,
well
I
said.
think,
Yeah.
and the reason why I wanted to bring this up is we doing a podcast, as not like we're getting like millions of listeners or watchers or anything, but we do it on one of the bigger channels out there, F4W Online Wrestling Observer, and we can have this conversation to for awareness reasons, right? Maybe somebody didn't
Sure.
think of it
Yeah.
this way. And I'm not saying you have to think of it the way that I think. I'm just saying this is how I see it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But this conversation is relevant and needs to happen. And Triple H does need to get better in these moments because he's 0 for 2 in my book with that first one with the Vince thing, how he didn't read the lawsuit, so he's not going to talk about it. And then now this, like, there are going to be important moments if you are the face of the company, and you need to be way better prepared if you want to stay in your job. Because if I'm Nick Khan and I see this dude answering questions this way, I'm like, man, somebody's going to get him, and it's going to look bad if somebody picks it up.
I mean, unless he's going through the school of Dana White answers, they don't give a shit. It's Endeavor.
Well, Dana's already chosen, right? He's already leaned into the Donald Trump stuff, so that already takes a certain segment of the audience that goes, we're not even going to pay attention to him because he's so over the top. But WWE's not going for only that part of the audience. They are really going after, some of the other part of that audience. So I think Triple H is going to have to be way more thoughtful. And I hope for his sake that he is looking for avenues, for language, for, docs, PR stuff, training that he can do to get better. Because if this company keeps going up and to the right, there's going to be more eyeballs on them than just us. So anyway, I want to apologize to producer John. I did not even tell you
John.
or John that I wanted to add that, but I just thought about it. I was like, you know what, we have to talk about this because this is what we do. Thank you very much, Andrew, for doing this. I'm glad we finally found the time. Thank you to John for staying a little bit of overtime. Thank you to the audience.
The best producer.
When we miss a few weeks, I have so many things to say to Andrew, so apologies for going a little bit late. But for Andrew, I'm Double G. Happy NXT versus AEW Title Tuesday tonight. See you when we see you. Peace out.